Hello, leopard 3rd and 4th grade artists. It is a terracotta warrior from China. Actually, it's just Mrs. Billman, but that is my terracotta warrior mask that could be found in China if you went to where those were excavated. So, we need to practice as we prepare to create our false china from China. We need to do a little bit of drawing practice so that we feel a little more comfortable when we are drawing on styrofoam, as it is a product we cannot erase. So with that in mind, we will learn to draw 2 different Chinese dragons and a Chinese tea house with a tree. So we're going to start out easiest, work our way up to middle, and then most difficult, giving everyone a chance to choose something that they feel comfortable drawing or something they may want to challenge themselves with if they want something that just ramps this up a little bit when it comes to drawing something a little tougher and a little more difficult. So when we are drawing, we are going to go step by step, and notice, because you are the oldest leopards, how many of the art elements we are using in a building blocks type of way to create any of these 3 learn to draw. So as we get set to practice, I need to turn the camera. I know that gives us a moment or two where it feels kind of like an earthquake, and I do apologize for that. So I'm going to get this flipped to where you can see better, I hope. And I'm going to make sure that you can see by ensuring that my screen contains my entire sketchbook. With that in place, we're going to start with one of the dragons that begins with a letter S. Because this is not reversed, my letter S is going to look backwards to you. So I'm going to make a nice big letter S in the middle of my practice paper, and I am going to make this letter S a little bit thicker by simply tracing next door. I'm going to end in sort of a point and sort of a point. I'm going to add some of these spikes that we can see in most Asian dragon designs on his shoulders of his back and down the lower part of his back. The next thing I'm going to add, so that I make sure I have appropriate room for them, are his bent arms that end in claws. If the arms are a little tricky, then you may wish to draw them with triangles on the ends to make this a little bit easier to form his claws. Either way is fine, because you'll very likely be coloring these in when you place this design on your plate. Actually, plate for 3rd grade, bowl or teacup for 4th grade, depending on what you want to call it. The next thing we're going to do after our letter S that we make double thick, after adding spikes, arms, and claws, we are going to add what comes out to be the long nose, bridge of the nose, and its upper jaw. So I'm going to draw a rectangle right here, just sort of floating really close to this part of the dragon. And I'm going to make sure that his head comes kind of lumpy like around like this. I'm going to connect it to that rectangle. It's okay if it's a little off center or a little wonky. I'm going to give one eyeball here and one eyeball here with a lower eyelid. And this upper jaw is going to end with some crazy teeth and some funky hair. For whatever reason, most Asian dragon designs have what look like antennae or 2 hairs that are crazy and wild. Next, he needs a lower jaw. To me, that looks like a letter L at first, and he has a beard. So my letter L is going to have a beard down its back, so to speak. And I'm sure the letter L also looks backwards in this recording. My last item to add is a forked tongue. That means it looks like a fork on the end. And any lines you don't like, you can erase those away. You may not like this forehead line that's here. You may also understand that when you do draw on the styrofoam, this will be colored in, so you won't notice these type of lines in the first place. You can always add more spikes. You can always add more teeth. But that's the most simple dragon for starters for you, my oldest artist. I'm going to move on to the second dragon, which is the face only. This is about middle of the road for you as a 3rd or 4th grader. And this face of a dragon comes to us from the Chinese dragon dancers, which technically dance within a very, very, very large puppet. Dragon dancers are usually 8 to 10 people inside of a fully operational puppet. So when we say dragon dancers, it doesn't sound like a puppet, but in fact, that's what it is. A full-face dragon dancer face comes to us by starting like this: a hump, a dip, and a hump. Pardon me. We're going to take this around like this to form a spiral, and this actually becomes the dragon's nose holes or nostrils. Make that a nice tight spiral. It makes it look far more interesting. Next, we're going to add the bridge of the nose, or the sides of the nose that come from the forehead down to meet the nostrils. Looks kind of like a set of parentheses that are backwards. These are actually the sides of each eye, and the eyes are triangular, like this and like this. So an upside down triangle, as you can see, for each. And those of you that remember Mrs. Billman's drawing pretty well know I always draw too large, and that is true on this as well. So I'm going to do my best to fit the details that you need to see in to this Learn to Draw. The eyebrows are next, and they look kind of like a little bit of a wavy bean or leaf. I try to get them symmetrical or the same. It's not easy when it's wavy like that. Just do your best, which is all I ever ask, is that you try your personal best. Within the ends of the eyebrows are 2 tiny triangles, 1 in each. And the eyeballs are smaller triangles than the ones you drew originally, but they follow pretty much the same pattern. On his forehead, you're going to see what looks like part of a flower. And then the next layer is actually more like the top of a heart, followed by another top of the heart looking piece. I'm going to add what looks like a single line mustache next. It's actually the top lip. Here's the sides of the dragon's open mouth. And his bottom lip has a hump in the middle. Adding his teeth will make this part look more accurate. There's his top teeth. Here are his bottom teeth. Finishing off his head and face is a matter of adding details. There are 2 lines on each side to add cheek details, plus some curly cues add to the cheek details as well. There is another almost flower shape down the side of his face. Just has 3 humps. And again, on this side. I'm actually going to leave that ending there. There's a line that follows the bottom lip to make his chin. There is a line that follows the eyebrows, the top part that looks like a heart, his eyebrow down to the other side. There is your Chinese dragon dancer face. This can obviously be colored in many different ways on your plate or bowl teacup. Next, I'm going to show you a more difficult design that is a tea house and one of the types of trees that you might like to add to your teacup or plate. The nice thing about drawing a Chinese tea house is that you will find them to be pretty symmetrical, so drawing one half and then the other shouldn't be an issue or problem. I like to draw 3 columns on the front of the front porch, basically. I'm not sure what else I would call it. So I start with the 3 columns. They have a top that sort of holds them together. In between your columns, you're going to see a fan shape. And remember, this one is the most difficult design simply because it has so many pieces and parts. It isn't really that any of the designs are hard. They just have more pieces and parts than the kindergarten, first, or second graders would attempt. And any of these, I know you can do them. I have third and fourth graders that can do any or all of these. So what you see me doing now is adding basically what looks like a very fancy set of steps. It's a whole bunch of rectangles. There's 3 small ones. There's 2 skinny ones between them. There's a piece on top that seems to hold them together. I'm going to make an archway door here and here. And I'm going to add some decoration right here, and right here. My tea house rooftop is going to have some curly cues on the corners of the rooftop. And so I'm going to start like this. It's almost like I drew a falling over letter J and another falling over letter J. One will look backwards. I'm going to add a top to this, and there is another layer of my tea house coming up. I like to make these a little fancy. Before I go on to the next layer, skinnier columns, lower roof line on the columns, another fancy rooftop, has kind of a hump in the middle. And even on top of that, another fancy rooftop that looks almost like a balcony. Now I'm going to go give the bottom of these columns some attention to make the porch look bigger. I'm going to give it some distance by making diagonal lines come from the sides of each column that's on the outside. I'm going to connect this, and you can see it makes my porch look as though it's coming out towards you. It's more like a step than a porch. Adding a weeping willow tree or a blossoming tree is easy to do with this tea house. You'll want to make sure you have a very wavy growing tree so that you have a good bunch of waviness to form branches. That has your branches going every which way and making them a little more detailed, giving you a better image. The easiest blossoms that I like to draw with big kids look fluffy And then they have circle inside and scribbles around that circle. It gives you a blooming, blossoming, easy flower that actually looks difficult. The scribbles are what make it have some value, not value like money, but values as in different shades and tints of a color. I would definitely fill this up much more than I have already, and I would definitely keep adding even after you think you may have enough. This tree looks pretty slim as far as having plenty of blossoms. I am going to stop drawing blossoms though, because you've seen how I draw them, and you know how now to add more. I am going to use our time to go ahead and draw another type of tree so that this video is not too long. If you would like a weeping willow, one of the ways that we've seen weeping willows drawn in Chinese design is to have them bending over like a weeping willow you would see even here in Indiana. And instead of the branches bending, and I'm going to turn my page, instead of branches that bend down like this, like what we're used to when we see a weeping willow, it looks a great deal like hair. Chinese weeping willows have a tree trunk like the one I drew on the last page. Here it is again. And the weeping willow part sort of comes out like a flag. They also have it shaped like a noodle with a spine down the middle and small ruffles on each edge. Now, if you love to draw details like I do, these are fun. They look almost like ruffly worms. If you're grossed out by worms, then I'm sorry. So a weeping willow in a Chinese China pattern design does not look like a weeping willow we might see by a pond or near a river in Indiana, where it would be bent over and reaching into the water below. So here are your weeping willow leaves for practice if you like. And here are your blooming flowers on a tree. Definitely need more than what you see. And there is a tea house paired with that tree. There will be samples of real Chinese china from the Ming Dynasty underneath this video if you need to see more that you may want to try on your own. Don't forget, submit a picture of your favorite too, please.